There's one thing I know for sure, and it's that when you're in a lustful mindset, you can't see things clearly. And then you re-enter this pool of being lost, which you have to climb out of again. And I think this is something that happens repeatedly through life. Because we'll always have desires, we'll never beat desires, unless we're Buddhas. There's always a potential for desire. The door is always there. So as long as that's there, the temptation exists, and we can leave the path. And that's when life becomes black and white. It becomes really polarized and rigid, yet at the same time you feel lost and you don't even understand what the right thing to do is. And you try and fix yourself, you try and diagnose yourself with all kinds of labels, narcissism, egomania, neuroticism, evil, antichrist, and it's really not helpful. It adds to the brain damage. And then you also think to yourself, well, this is all a little bit serious. It's really serious. But I think life isn't serious. Life is a bit of a comedy. But that's one of the dualities. Comedy easily slips into tragedy, and tragedy easily slips into comedy. And what differs is the outlook. And when you're lost, when you're not on the path, it can easily feel like a tragedy because it's a dead end. But it feels like a comedy when there's something next. And I suppose what it is then is finding out what's next, what's really next for you. That's the most important thing, and you'll figure it out as you go along, because delving into the past and playing with images in your mind and words in your mind, in your own mind, think about that. It's silly. There's only what's next, but this is the thing, I suppose. It's difficult to know what's next. Very difficult to know what's next, and I think having faith that part of having faith is being okay with not knowing what's next exactly, and having a vague, what's necessary is to have a vague sense of my life has direction to it. But again, part of that is realizing when, we've strayed, because there is a path. And I think lust makes things cloudy. Makes things so cloudy. That's something I've noticed. So, sexual lust is a big one. It makes things really, really cloudy. You can really lose sight of what you were doing a month ago if you get engaged with sexual things and thoughts and actions, because it doesn't even necessarily have to be an action. It can be thoughts, it can be behaviors. I mean, a big one in the big 26 is gooning. And it takes up so much energy that you can lose sight, and then your light starts dimming, and then you enter this fog. And it's a beautiful day, for me personally, it's a beautiful day, but I still feel foggy. And, but it's not, and lust is not necessarily sexual, just for anyone who's curious. It can be literally anything. It can be lust even for, I used to play lots of League of Legends. It can be lust for a rank, lust to get diamond. Or in the case of the YouTube channel, lust to get views. Any kind of that lust makes you feel lost. It makes you feel really aimless. You start to feel fake. That's a big one. You start to feel fake. And it starts to feel like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. That's kind of what the feeling is. And so for me, like, I try to make a video sometimes and I catch it. I'm like, damn, I've kind of been interested in what the views are recently, and I don't get many views at the moment, but it's not even about that. It's just about the potential for that. And it makes sense that my mind would try and catch that my conscience tries to catch that, the conscience I'm endowed with, because it makes sense. If I care about views and I make my videos in light of how many views they're gonna get, or do anything with the reward in mind, then I'm a bit damned if I do get those views, even, you know, because not only will my content be geared towards getting the views, let's actually explore the best possibility, which is that I do get a lot of views, and that encourages me to keep doing the videos. But then what happens if the reward declines, if I stop getting the reward? I'll stop making videos, or they won't be as good quality, or I'll lose my motivation, or the high will run dry. And you don't want the high to run dry. You want to fly, always. You want to just fly naturally. It doesn't come from seeking something, but here's the thing, it's so difficult not to seek things, because to be driven by rewards, worldly rewards, that's basically the human condition. That's what it means to be in this body, and to transcend that is no easy task, and only a few have transcended that. And it may be that it's impossible to transcend, but it only locally looks like it's possible to transcend. So what do I mean by this? It's like Jesus, for example. And, you know, people get dogmatic, I think. People get dogmatic about Jesus. I think he was a real guy and he did awesome things. And he was so focused on the kingdom of heaven, focused on the kingdom of God, that the material reward exceeded his own lifetime. But that doesn't mean it still wasn't there. I'm not saying he was, I'm saying he was, I suppose I'm saying he wasn't perfect, but that also seems like a contradiction, because I think he probably was for most of his life anyway. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, see, now I feel a little bit evil for saying that about Jesus. It's because I was brought up Catholic, you know. It feels like blasphemy, but it's so hard to know when you're brought up religious, what is the line between the dogma, what's the line between what's rigid and hammer and steel into the mind, and what is really trying to help you, what's real, basically, what's real. Because, you know, even when great people exist, let's say, you know, imagine there's someone beautiful and popular, and you know, they speak the truth, and they're amazing, you know, they help. They have that, it's a bit of an archetype. They sometimes have that one follower who, like, defends them with their whole life, and the guy or girl, or whoever it is, the famous popular one themselves, they don't even ask for that person to be around, but they're kind in their spirit, so they're not going to tell them to go away. They don't tell anyone to go away. They accept them for who they are. And yet that follower is so insistent on, like, no, you're not going to touch him, no, you're not going to touch her, no, who how dare you speak to this person. And it's like, what was even my point? It's that person is the dogmatist. That they're the person who's going to write the Bible probably and be like, Jesus was amazing, or this person was amazing, or this girl was amazing and did this and that, and the laws are forever immutable. And then you lose sense of the locality of time, because Jesus lived in a certain time. I'm just going to use Jesus as an example. He lived in a certain time. He was a Jew, right? He lived in the Middle East. Is that right? He lived in Israel, right? Jordan, I don't know what the modern day place is, but, you know, he lived in the middle, and excuse me. He lived in the middle. He had his own specific language, his own specific time, the specific people around him, the Romans. You see how it's all in a specific historical placing. And of course the human condition doesn't really change. It doesn't. Okay, and by the way, we're all humans, so Don't worry about not being perfect. But so the things that Jesus said, they have to surely take on a certain flavor of the time, and what that requires then is interpretation. And I think you can't let someone else interpret it for you, not least a dogmatist. And you just have to try and tell that apart and try and extract the moral from what Jesus was trying to say, rather than what is exactly recorded and what is said of him, which I think is possible to discern. Anyway, the real point is that the overarching thing is, you know, Jesus knew what he was talking about. It's good to follow, and it's good to follow people who are real. I think that's a good place to start. If someone resonates with you, trust that, you know, trust that person. It's okay to have some faith. That's part of having faith. If you think someone's on the right track, and you know, even if they're not fully on the right track, I think having that faith is a good sign to trust people. But it's hard because we also everyone battles in the 2026 with isolation and technology, and it does separate us. And yeah, you feel lost. You feel lost at times. That was the main point. You feel lost, and I suppose don't try and fix yourself. That's one of the big ones. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Don't try and fix yourself, although it's so tempting because our mind tries to come up with solutions and it creates excuses and this and that. But remember that life is just now. Life is just, probably if you're watching this video, your life is this video. You're looking at me now, explaining this abstract thing. And you're going to click off the video and then you're going to go back to whatever the noise is, probably. There's going to be a little bit of noise in your life. But remember, there's always a little bit of you. And there's always a little bit of just pure experience that's now. And it doesn't care about history, as Muji said, you know. There is no history in now. So because we want our life to be, it's for the ego, and it makes a lot of sense. We want our life to be a clear narrative. Because the ego likes putting things together. That's part of the human condition. To put things together into an order. And that's good, you know? That's good for us. But I think it's bad when we want a narrative so badly that we cannot live in the present moment without feeling bogged down by the past. Or if the present moment is unbearable, this is another one. If the present moment is unbearable, so we try and make it a particle of the past or a kernel of the future, like it's leading to something or that it proceeded from something, but really that's really just an illusion. I think for the purpose of living our life and upkeeping the machine, you know, life. I can see the cars going past. I'm next to a university campus. I'm next to a nursery. You see how stuff is happening, and it requires this narrative of what's happening next. What's the plan? But really, if there is no, and yes, obviously on the local level, you can't live without a plan. That's the paradox. But really, if you think about it, if you just contemplate it, there is no plan. What plan? There's only just existence and the current moment, right? But it's so easy to forget that, and I think part of being lost is actually trying to trace yourself and place yourself in this history or this future. You see what I'm saying? When really there is none. So what's the point, really? There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. All right? We all do silly stuff sometimes, but I think there is a real price to be paid, and then you end up feeling lost. But there's always a way out. There's no such thing as being effed forever. Eternal damnation. Come on. But so with that being said, don't give up. No, don't give up. Maybe surrender, but don't give up. Maybe surrender even. You know, who knows? But I just want to say to you, there's nothing wrong with you. It's okay to feel lost. And just trust that you'll regain the path. And don't do anything stupid. Just relax. Just chill. And things will be fine and revealed to you. So yeah, it's a good day for me. I might go to the beach later. My life is awesome actually, but this is the thing, you know, sometimes your life is great, but the fog is still there, and it's annoying, but I think it will pass. So, adios.